I thought I knew what love was. I thought when you found the right person, nothing else mattered. Not money, not status, not the color of your skin. I was wrong. On what should have been the happiest day of my life, standing at that altar in my perfectly tailored tuxedo, I learned a truth that shattered everything. The woman I loved was too ashamed to marry me. Her father had made it clear there would be no black husband in their family, and she agreed. What happened next wasn't revenge, it wasn't rage, it was something quieter, something more devastating. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply walk away and let them watch what they lost. If you're watching this, hit that subscribe button and tell me where you're watching from. Because this story is about to show you that dignity is the ultimate power move. I woke up before the sun. The hotel room was quiet, too quiet, the kind of silence that makes you notice your own breathing. I lay there for a minute, staring at the ceiling and tried to remember why I wasn't nervous. Today was my wedding day. I should have been excited, or scared, or something, but all I felt was this strange calm, like I was watching myself from somewhere else. I sat up and looked at the tuxedo hanging on the closet door. Black, sharp. Eleanor had picked it out 3 months ago. She said it would photograph well. That mattered to her, how things looked in pictures. I walked to the window and pulled back the curtain. The sky was still dark, but you could see that pale blue line at the edge where morning was trying to break through. Down below, the parking lot was empty except for a few cars. One of them was mine, a 15-year-old Civic with a dent in the passenger door. I smiled a little. Eleanor hated that car. She'd offered to buy me something new at least 10 times. Something more appropriate, she'd said once. I told her the Civic ran fine. That wasn't the real reason I kept it, though. The real reason was that it reminded me where I came from, who I was. I was Marcus Hale, 32 years old, black, a mechanic. Well, more than that now, I co-owned a garage with my best friend Jonah. But at my core, I was still the guy who got grease under his fingernails and knew the sound of a bad transmission from 3 blocks away. Eleanor Whitmore was 30, white, beautiful, the CEO of a company her grandfather started 60 years ago. She wore heels that cost more than most people's rent. She had a penthouse in the city and a house in the Hamptons. She spoke 3 languages and had been on the cover of 2 business magazines. And somehow, she'd chosen me. That's what I kept telling myself anyway. I turned away from the window and started getting dressed. Slowly. There was no rush. The ceremony wasn't until 2 o'clock, and it was barely 5 in the morning. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. I picked it up and saw Jonah's name on the screen. "You up?" his text said. "Yeah," I typed back. 3 dots appeared. Then, "How you feeling, man?" I stared at the question for a long time. How was I feeling? "Good," I finally wrote. "Ready?" The dots appeared again, then disappeared, then appeared again. "Call me if you need anything," he wrote. "I got your back." I smiled. Jonah always had my back. We'd known each other since we were kids, growing up in the same neighborhood where nobody had much of anything. We'd worked on cars together in his uncle's driveway, dreaming about opening our own place someday. And 5 years ago, we'd done it. Hale and Ross Auto. Small, but ours. "Thanks, brother," I texted back. I set the phone down and finished buttoning my shirt. White, crisp. I'd ironed it myself last night because I didn't trust the hotel to do it right. As I tied my tie in the mirror, I thought about the vows I'd written. I'd been practicing them for weeks, trying to get them perfect. Eleanor had hired someone to write hers, a professional. She said she wanted them to sound polished. I didn't argue. That was her way. Mine were simpler, more honest. I cleared my throat and spoke quietly to my reflection. "Eleanor, when I met you, I didn't think someone like you could ever see someone like me. But you did. You saw past everything people told you to see. You chose me, and I promise to spend every day proving that you made the right choice. I promise to protect you, to support you, to love you exactly as you are. My voice cracked a little on that last part. I stopped and took a breath. It was a good vow. I meant every word. I just wished it didn't feel like I was trying to convince myself. By the time I got downstairs, the hotel was starting to wake up. Staff moved through the lobby with quiet efficiency, setting up flower arrangements and adjusting chairs. Everything was white and gold, elegant, expensive. A young woman in a black suit approached me with a clipboard. "Good morning," she said, smiling politely. "Are you here for the Whitmore wedding?" I nodded. "I'm the groom." Her smile faltered for just a second, just long enough for me to notice. "Oh," she said. "Of course. Mr. Hale. Welcome." She glanced down at her clipboard. "The ceremony will be in the Rose Garden at 2 o'clock. The family requested that all guests arrive by 1:30. "I know," I said. "I helped plan it." "Right?" Another brief smile. "Well, if you need anything, just let us know." She walked away quickly, like she was late for something. I stood there for a moment, feeling that familiar weight settle on my chest. It wasn't anger, it was something quieter, heavier. I'd been dealing with it for 2 years, since the first time Eleanor brought me to meet her parents. The polite smiles, the careful words, the way people looked at me like I was a puzzle they couldn't quite solve. What's a guy like him doing with a girl like her? I'd heard that question in a dozen different ways. Sometimes people said it out, loud. Most of the time, they just thought it. But I always knew. I walked outside into the cool morning air and sat on a stone bench near the fountain. The sun was coming up now, painting the sky pink and orange. It was going to be a beautiful day. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was Eleanor. "Good morning," her text said. "I can't wait to marry you." I stared at the words for a long time. Then I typed back, "Me too." At noon, I went back upstairs to finish getting ready. The tuxedo fit perfectly. Eleanor had made sure of that. She'd taken me to 3 different tailors before she found one she trusted. I looked at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the man staring back. I looked good, polished, like I belonged in her world, but I didn't feel like me. I pulled the ring box out of my jacket pocket and opened it. The wedding band inside was simple, white gold. I'd picked it out myself. Eleanor's ring was more elaborate, diamonds, platinum, the whole thing. Her mother had insisted. I snapped the box shut and put it back in my pocket. Someone knocked on the door. "Come in," I called. It was one of the groomsmen, a guy named Trevor who worked at Eleanor's company. I didn't know him well. Eleanor had asked me to include him because he was important for optics. "Hey man," Trevor said, grinning. "You ready for this?" "Yeah," I said. "Big day." He clapped me on the shoulder. "Eleanor's a lucky woman." I nodded but didn't say anything. Trevor didn't seem to notice. He kept talking about the ceremony, the reception, the honeymoon. I let his words wash over me without really listening. Finally, he checked his watch. "We should head down. It's almost time." The rose garden was full when we arrived. About 50 people. Small, like Eleanor wanted. Intimate, she'd called it. I recognized some of them, her college friends, a few business associates, her parents, of course, sitting in the front row. Richard Whitmore, in a gray suit, his expression unreadable. Vivian Whitmore beside him, wearing pearls and a tight smile. On my side, there were only 3 people. Jonah, my cousin Tasha, and Mrs. Beatrice, the woman who used to babysit me when I was a kid. She was 80 now, but she'd insisted on coming. The imbalance was hard to ignore. A wedding planner I'd never met before approached me with a tight smile. "Mr. Hale," she said, "we're just waiting for final confirmation from the family. It should only be a few more minutes." "Confirmation of what?" I asked. Oh, just logistics. She waved her hand vaguely. Nothing to worry about. But something in her tone made me worry. She walked away before I could ask anything else. I stood at the front of the garden, near the arbor where the ceremony would take place. White roses everywhere. The smell was overwhelming. Jonah appeared beside me. He was wearing a suit too, but he looked more comfortable in it than I felt in mine. "You good?" he asked quietly. "Yeah," I said. He studied my face. "You sure?" I didn't answer. A few minutes later, Vivian Whitmore stood up and walked toward me. Her heels clicked on the stone path. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Marcus," she said, "how are you holding up?" "I'm fine, Mrs. Whitmore." "Please, call me Vivian." She touched my arm lightly. "Eleanor is so excited. We all are." I nodded. She hesitated, then leaned in slightly. "I just want you to know that we're grateful for everything you've done for Eleanor. You've been very good to her." The way she said it made it sound like a job performance review. "I love her," I said simply. "Of course." Vivian's smile tightened. "Well, I should get back to my seat. Richard wanted me to let you know he'd like a word before the ceremony. Just a quick chat. Father of the bride things." Something cold slid down my spine. "Where?" I asked. "He's in the west corridor. Just through those doors." She pointed toward a side entrance. "It'll only take a moment." She walked away before I could respond. Jonah stepped closer. "You want me to come with you?" I shook my head. "I'll be fine." But I wasn't sure I believed that. The west corridor was empty and quiet. My footsteps echoed on the marble floor. Richard Whitmore stood at the far end, looking out a tall window. He didn't turn around when I approached. "Mr. Whitmore," I said. "Marcus." He said my name like he was tasting something bitter. "Thank you for meeting me." "Of course." He turned slowly. Richard Whitmore was 62, but he looked younger. Fit, sharp, the kind of man who'd spent his whole life being in control. "I'll be brief," he said. "I know we don't have much time." I waited. He took a breath. "My family has a legacy, one that goes back 4 generations. We've built something significant, something that matters." "I know, sir." "Do you?" He tilted his head slightly. "I'm not sure you do. This isn't just about money, Marcus. It's about reputation, standards, the kind of image we present to the world." My jaw tightened. "I've tried to be patient," Richard continued. "I've tried to give Eleanor space to make her own choices. But there are some choices that affect more than just one person. Do you understand what I'm saying?" "No, sir, I don't." He smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "There will be no black husband in this family," he said calmly. "Not now, not ever." The words hit me like a punch. I stood there, frozen, trying to process what I just heard. "This isn't about you personally," Richard went on. "I'm sure you're a decent man, hardworking, honest, but this is about what's best for the family, for Eleanor's future, for the business." "Does Eleanor know you're saying this?" My voice came out steadier than I expected. "Eleanor understands the situation." "Does she agree with you?" Richard didn't answer right away. He just looked at me with those cold, calculating eyes. Then he nodded. "Yes," he said quietly. "She does." The floor seemed to tilt under my feet. "She asked me to speak with you," Richard added. "She hoped you'd understand, that you'd do the right thing." "The right thing," I repeated slowly. "Walk away, Marcus. Quietly. With dignity. We'll compensate you, of course. Financially. You'll never have to worry about money again." I stared at him. All I could hear was the blood rushing in my ears. "I need to talk to Eleanor," I finally said. "I don't think that's—" "I need to talk to her. Now." Richard sighed. "Very well. She's in the bridal suite. Second floor." I turned and walked away without another word. The bridal suite door was half open. I could hear voices inside. Laughter, music playing softly. I pushed the door open. Eleanor stood in front of a full-length mirror, adjusting her veil. She looked stunning. The dress was perfect, simple, and elegant, like her. When she saw me, her eyes went wide. "Marcus," she said quickly, "you're not supposed to see me before. Is it true?" I interrupted. The room went silent. The two bridesmaids standing near Eleanor exchanged glances and quietly slipped out, closing the door behind them. Eleanor's face went pale. "What did my father say to you?" "Is it true?" I asked again. She closed her eyes. "Marcus, yes or no, Eleanor? Is it true?" A long pause. Then, barely a whisper. "Yes." The word shattered something inside me. "You told him you wouldn't marry me," I said. Not a question, a statement. "I told him I was afraid to," she corrected. "There's a difference." "No, there isn't." She turned to face me fully, and I saw tears in her eyes. "You don't understand the pressure I'm under, the expectations, the board, the investors, my family. I don't care about any of that." "Well, I do." Her voice broke. "This isn't just about us, Marcus. There are consequences, real consequences. If I go through with this, I lose everything, my position, my family's support, everything I've worked for. And if you don't go through with it," I said quietly, "you lose me." She bit her lip. "I was hoping. I thought maybe we could still do this. Just get through the ceremony. We don't have to tell anyone right away. We could figure it out later. Find a way to make it work." I stared at her. "You want me to marry you knowing you're ashamed of me?" "I'm not ashamed." "Yes, you are." The words hung in the air between us. Eleanor wiped her eyes, careful not to smudge her makeup. "Please, Marcus, don't make this harder than it already is. Just trust me. We can work this out, I promise." I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to, but I couldn't. Music started playing outside, the wedding march. Eleanor's face changed. "That's our cue," she said. "We need to go." I didn't move. "Marcus, please." I looked at her one last time. The woman I'd loved for 2 years, the woman I'd planned a life with, and I realized I didn't know her at all. "Okay," I said finally. Relief flooded her face. "Thank you. Thank you so much. I promise we'll figure this out. I promise." "Let's just get through the ceremony," I said. She nodded quickly and took my arm. We walked downstairs together side by side like nothing was wrong. Like I hadn't just heard my fiancée tell me she was too afraid to marry me, like my heart wasn't breaking with every step. When we reached the garden, everyone stood. Faces turned toward us, cameras lifted. Eleanor's hand tightened on my arm. We walked down the aisle together, past all those watching eyes, past Jonah, who looked at me with concern, past Richard and Vivian, who sat stone-faced in the front row. We reached the arbor. The officiant, an older man with kind eyes, smiled at us. "Dearly beloved," he began. I barely heard the words. My mind was somewhere else, somewhere far away. The officiant spoke about love, about commitment, about two people becoming one. I thought about how Eleanor had looked when she admitted the truth, the guilt in her eyes, the fear. "If anyone has any reason why these two should not be joined in marriage," the officiant said, "speak now or forever hold your peace." Silence. I felt everyone watching, waiting. The officiant smiled. "Very well. Let us proceed with the vows." Eleanor turned to face me. She was crying now, but trying to hide it. She reached for my hands. I let her take them. "Marcus," she began, reading from a card she'd hidden in her bouquet. "From the moment we met, I knew you were different, special. You challenged me, supported me, loved me in ways I never expected. Today, I stand before you and promise to—" I pulled my hands away. Eleanor stopped mid-sentence. Marcus. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out the ring box. Her eyes went wide. What are you? I opened the box and carefully removed the ring. Then I placed it gently on the altar between us. Marcus, Eleanor whispered. Please don't. I looked at her one last time, really looked at her. Then I turned and walked away. The gasps started immediately. Whispers, confusion. Someone called my name. I kept walking, down the aisle, past all those shocked faces, past Richard, who stood up like he wanted to stop me but didn't, past Jonah, who just nodded once. I walked through the garden doors, through the lobby, out into the parking lot. The sun was bright, warm. I got into my Civic, started the engine, and drove away. And I didn't look back. The hotel room felt different when I came back. Smaller, emptier. I stood in the doorway for a long moment, just staring at the space. The bed was still made. My suitcase sat in the corner, half packed for the honeymoon we'd never take. A bottle of champagne someone had left as a gift sat unopened on the desk. I walked inside and closed the door behind me. My hands were shaking. I looked down at them, surprised. I'd felt so calm walking away from the altar. So certain. But now, alone in this room, everything was catching up to me. I sat on the edge of the bed and loosened my tie. What had I just done? My phone started buzzing. I pulled it out and saw Eleanor's name flashing on the screen. I stared at it until it stopped. Then it started again and again. On the fourth call, I turned the phone face down on the nightstand. The buzzing continued for another minute, then finally stopped. Silence filled the room. I stood up and walked to the mirror. The man looking back at me was still wearing a tuxedo, still looked like he was ready to get married, but his eyes were different now, harder, tired. I started unbuttoning my jacket. Someone knocked on the door. I froze. Eleanor? It's me, man. Jonah's voice. I exhaled and opened the door. Jonah stood in the hallway, still in his suit, his tie pulled loose. He didn't say anything at first, just looked at me with that steady gaze he'd had since we were kids. The one that said he already understood everything without needing to hear it. You okay? He finally asked. I don't know. He nodded. Can I come in? I stepped aside. Jonah walked past me and sat in the chair by the window. He didn't ask what happened, didn't push for details. He just sat there, giving me space to figure out what to say. I went back to the bed and sat down heavily. Her father told me there wouldn't be a black husband in their family, I said quietly. Jonah's jaw tightened, but he didn't look surprised. And Eleanor knew, I continued. She agreed with him. She wanted me to go through with the wedding anyway. Just pretend everything was fine. Jesus, Jonah muttered. She said we could figure it out later, that it didn't have to be real. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Like I was supposed to be grateful for the chance to play pretend in her world. You did the right thing, Jonah said firmly. Did I? I looked at him. I just walked away from the woman I love in front of 50 people. I humiliated her, humiliated myself. No, Jonah leaned forward. She humiliated you first, Marcus. Long before today. You just finally decided you were worth more than that. The words hit me harder than I expected. I put my face in my hands. I really loved her, I said, my voice breaking. I really thought, I know. I thought she loved me too. Maybe she did, Jonah said quietly, but not enough. We sat in silence for a while. The sun was starting to set outside, painting the room in orange light. Finally, Jonah stood up. You hungry? I shook my head. When's the last time you ate? I couldn't remember. Come on, he pulled me to my feet. We're getting food. Then we're getting you out of this suit. And tomorrow, we're going home. I can't go home yet. The room's paid for through the weekend. So? So I should stay. Get my money's worth. Jonah gave me a look. Marcus, her family paid for this room. Oh, right. Let's go, Jonah said. We ended up at a diner 2 blocks from the hotel, the kind of place with cracked vinyl booths and fluorescent lights that buzzed. It was the opposite of everywhere Eleanor had ever taken me to eat. I ordered coffee and eggs. Jonah got a burger. You want to talk about it? He asked. Not really. Okay. We ate in comfortable silence. Around us, life went on like normal. A family with 2 kids arguing over French fries, an elderly couple reading the newspaper together, a waitress refilling coffee and humming along to the radio. Nobody knew what had just happened to me. Nobody cared. It was almost peaceful. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out and saw 17 missed calls, 12 from Eleanor, 3 from numbers I didn't recognize, 2 from Vivian Whitmore. There were also dozens of text messages. I scrolled through them quickly. Eleanor, please call me. Eleanor, Marcus, we need to talk. Eleanor, I'm sorry. Please just let me explain. Eleanor, you're not answering. I'm worried. Eleanor, this isn't fair. You didn't even give me a chance. That last one made me angry. I didn't give her a chance? I deleted the messages without responding. She blowing up your phone? Jonah asked. Yeah? You gonna answer? No. He nodded approvingly. Good. Is that cold? I asked. Just ignoring her? Is it cold that she was willing to marry you while being ashamed of you? I didn't have an answer for that. Jonah finished his burger and pushed his plate aside. Look, man, I know you loved her. I know this hurts. But some people don't deserve access to you. Not right now. Maybe not ever. She's going to keep calling. So let her. You don't owe her anything. Not your time. Not your forgiveness. Not an explanation. You already said everything you needed to say when you walked away. I thought about that. He was right. I'd spent 2 years trying to prove I was good enough for Eleanor's world, good enough for her family, good enough for her, but I was done disappearing. I'm done disappearing, I said out loud. Jonah smiled. There you go. I checked out of the hotel that night. Jonah helped me pack my things. We didn't talk much, just moved through the room efficiently, folding clothes and zipping suitcases. When everything was loaded into my car, I took one last look at the hotel. All those perfect white walls, those expensive flower arrangements, that world I'd tried so hard to fit into. I didn't belong there. I never had. You ready? Jonah asked. Yeah. We drove home in convoy, Jonah following behind me in his truck. It was late, almost midnight, and the roads were empty. I kept the radio off. Just listened to the sound of the engine and the tires on the pavement. My mind kept replaying the day. Eleanor's face when I pulled my hands away. Richard's cold smile. The gasps from the crowd. I'd burned that bridge completely. There was no going back now. I got home around 2 in the morning. My apartment was small but clean. 1 bedroom, a kitchen barely big enough for 2 people. But it was mine. I dropped my suitcase by the door and fell onto the couch without bothering to change. Sleep didn't come easy. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Eleanor in her wedding dress, heard her voice asking me to just get through the ceremony. Around 4, I gave up and turned on the TV. Some late-night talk show was on. The host was making jokes about celebrity gossip. The audience laughed. I watched without really seeing. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Eleanor. I know you're angry. You have every right to be. But please, Marcus, let me explain. Let me fix this. I stared at the words for a long time. Part of me wanted to call her, to hear her out, to see if there was any way to salvage what we'd had. But a bigger part of me knew the truth. There was nothing to salvage. She'd made her choice, and I'd made mine. I turned off my phone completely and set it on the coffee table. Morning came too fast. I woke up on the couch with a stiff neck and my tuxedo shirt wrinkled beyond repair. Sunlight streamed through the windows. Birds chirped outside. It was Sunday. The day after my wedding. That never happened. I took a long shower, letting the hot water wash away the remnants of yesterday. When I got out, I looked at myself in the foggy mirror. I looked tired, older somehow, but I also looked like myself again. I got dressed in jeans and an old t-shirt. Then I made coffee and sat at my kitchen table, staring at the wall. What now? The question hung in the air. I'd walked away from Eleanor, from her family, from that whole world. But I hadn't thought about what came next. My phone, still turned off, sat on the coffee table like a bomb waiting to go off. I left it there. Instead, I grabbed my keys and drove to the garage. Hale and Ross Auto sat on a quiet street on the east side of town. It wasn't fancy, just a two-bay garage with our names painted on the front window. But it was ours. I parked in front and sat for a moment just looking at the building. This was real. This was mine. Not because someone gave it to me or because I tried to fit into someone else's world, but because Jonah and I had worked our asses off for it. I got out and unlocked the front door. The smell of oil and metal hit me immediately. Familiar, comforting. I walked through the garage, running my hand along the workbenches. Everything was exactly where we'd left it on Friday. Tools organized, projects waiting, normal. I was supposed to be on my honeymoon right now. 2 weeks in Italy. Eleanor had planned every detail. Instead, I was here. And honestly, it felt right. I heard a car pull up outside. A moment later, Jonah walked in. "Figured I'd find you here," he said. "Couldn't sleep." "Yeah, me neither." He grabbed 2 beers from the mini fridge we kept in the office and handed me one. It was barely 9 in the morning, but I took it anyway. We clinked bottles and drank in silence. "So, what's the plan?" Jonah finally asked. "Work," I said. "Just work. Keep my head down. Move forward. That's it? What else is there?" Jonah shrugged. "I don't know. Maybe talk to somebody. Process what happened." "I'm fine. You walked away from your wedding yesterday. Because she didn't want to marry me. Still gotta hurt, man." It did. More than I wanted to admit. But talking about it wouldn't change anything. "I just need to get back to normal," I said. "Back to real life." Jonah studied me for a moment, then nodded. "Okay, then let's get to work." We spent the rest of the morning organizing the garage, cleaning, prepping for the week ahead. It felt good to use my hands, to focus on something concrete. Around noon, a customer showed up, Mrs. Chen, who drove an ancient Honda that needed an oil change every other month. "Marcus," she said, surprised, "I thought you were getting married this weekend." "Plans changed," I said simply. She looked at me with concern but didn't push. "Well, I'm glad you're here. My car's making a funny noise again." "Let's take a look." I threw myself into the work. Diagnosed the problem, fixed it. Mrs. Chen paid and left happy. Then another customer came, and another. By evening, we'd serviced 4 cars. It felt almost normal. Monday morning, I opened the garage at 7 sharp. Jonah showed up 30 minutes later with coffee and breakfast sandwiches. "You sleep?" he asked. "A little." Liar. I smiled despite myself. We were halfway through a brake job when my phone rang. I'd finally turned it back on that morning. Though I'd been ignoring most of the calls and messages, this time it was a number I recognized. Paul Martinez, our main parts supplier. "Hey, Paul," I answered. "Marcus, good to hear your voice, man. Listen, I'm calling about your standing order. We're gonna need to push it back a couple of weeks." I frowned. "Why?" "Just some logistical issues on our end, nothing major. We'll get you sorted soon." "Paul, we need those parts this week. We've got 3 jobs lined up that depend on them." I know. I'm sorry." It's out of my hands. Something in his tone made me suspicious. Is this about what happened this weekend? Silence. Paul, look, Marcus, there's been some pressure from up the chain. I can't really get into it, but things are complicated right now. My stomach tightened. What kind of pressure? I can't say, man. I'm sorry. I'll call you when I know more. He hung up. I stood there staring at my phone. Jonah looked up from the engine he was working on. What's wrong? I think Eleanor's family is coming after the business. Over the next 2 days, 3 more suppliers suddenly had complications with our orders. One couldn't deliver. Another raised prices by 40%. A third canceled our account entirely. It wasn't a coincidence. They're trying to squeeze you out, Jonah said Wednesday evening as we closed up the garage. Force you to come crawling back. Or force me to shut down. You think Eleanor's behind this? I didn't want to believe it, but I couldn't ignore the pattern. I don't know, I admitted. Maybe it's her father. Does it matter? He was right, it didn't. Thursday morning, I got a call from a man I'd never spoken to before. He introduced himself as Gerald Whitmore's attorney. Gerald was Richard's brother. Mr. Hale? The attorney said smoothly, I'm calling on behalf of the Whitmore family. They'd like to discuss a settlement. A settlement for what? For the embarrassment and emotional distress caused by your actions last weekend. Mrs. Whitmore, Eleanor, was deeply humiliated. There were guests, photographers, significant expenses. I almost laughed. You're threatening to sue me for walking away from my own wedding? We're simply exploring our options. However, the family is willing to forego legal action if you sign a non-disclosure agreement and accept a monetary settlement. How much? $50,000 in exchange for your silence about the circumstances surrounding the wedding and any future claims. I hung up. $50,000 to disappear quietly, to never tell anyone what really happened, to let them control the narrative. No. That evening, Eleanor showed up at the garage. I was under a Camry, replacing the exhaust system, when I heard heels clicking on the concrete floor. Marcus. I rolled out from under the car and sat up. Eleanor stood in the doorway, backlit by the setting sun. She was wearing a simple dress and sunglasses, even though it was almost dark. She looked tired. We need to talk, she said. I stood up slowly, wiping grease off my hands with a rag. How'd you know I'd be here? Where else would you be? Fair point. Jonah appeared from the office. He looked at Eleanor, then at me. You want me to stay? It's fine, I said. He nodded and left through the back door. Eleanor took off her sunglasses. Her eyes were red. You didn't answer any of my calls. I know. I've been trying to reach you for days. I know. She took a breath. Marcus, we need to talk about what happened. About us. There is no us, I said quietly. Don't say that. Eleanor, you told your father you wouldn't marry a black man. Then you asked me to go through with the wedding anyway, like it didn't matter. I was scared. Of what? Of me? Of what people would think? Of losing everything. Her voice broke. My position at the company, my family's support, everything I've built. And what about me? I asked. What about what I built? My dignity? My self-respect? I never asked you to give that up. Yes, you did. That's exactly what you asked. She stepped closer. I made a mistake. I was weak. I let my father get in my head. But we can fix this. We can still... No, the word hung between us. I'm sorry, I said more gently, but I can't do this. I can't be with someone who's ashamed of me. I'm not ashamed of you. Then why won't you marry me? She didn't answer, because we both knew the truth. Eleanor's eyes filled with tears. Please, Marcus, don't give up on us. I'm not giving up on us, I said. You already did that. I'm just accepting it. She wiped her eyes. So, that's it? We're done? Yeah, just like that? No, not just like that. But yes, we're done. She stared at me for a long moment, then she put her sunglasses back on. Fine, she said, her voice cold now, if that's what you want. It's not about what I want. Did you know my family's cutting off your suppliers? She interrupted. So it was true. I suspected, I said. My father's furious. He thinks you played me, that you were after money the whole time. And what do you think? She didn't answer. Eleanor, I loved you, I said, quietly. I would have given you everything, but I won't erase myself to make your family comfortable. So, you'll just let everything fall apart? Your business? Our relationship? My business is my problem, and our relationship fell apart the moment you chose your family over me. Her jaw tightened. This is your last chance, Marcus. Come with me right now. We'll talk to my parents, work something out, or walk away and lose everything. I looked at her, really looked at her, and felt nothing. No anger, no love, just emptiness. Goodbye, Eleanor. She flinched like I'd slapped her. Then she turned and walked out without another word. I stood alone in the garage as her car pulled away. The sun had set completely now. Darkness filled the space, but for the first time in days, I felt like I could breathe. 3 days later, I stood in the garage office, staring at spreadsheets that refused to make sense. Red numbers everywhere. The supplier issues were getting worse. Without parts, we couldn't finish jobs. Without finished jobs, we couldn't pay bills. The math was simple and devastating. Jonah sat across from me, his face grim. We've got maybe 2 weeks before we have to start making hard choices, he said. I know. I can front some cash. My savings. No, I shook my head firmly. This is my mess. I'm not dragging you down with me. We're partners, Marcus. Your mess is my mess. Not this time. He looked like he wanted to argue but stayed quiet. I ran my hands over my face. I hadn't slept more than 3 hours in the past week. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the numbers, the bills, the future slipping away. There's gotta be something we can do, I said. Some supplier who isn't connected to the Whitmores. I've been calling around. Everyone's either too expensive or too slow. We need parts by next week or we lose the Jenkins contract. The Jenkins contract. $15,000 to restore a classic Mustang. It was supposed to be our biggest job of the quarter. Without it, we were finished. My phone buzzed. Another unknown number. Probably another one of Eleanor's father's lawyers. I ignored it. Marcus? Jonah's voice was careful. Maybe you should consider their offer. I looked up sharply. What? The settlement. 50 grand. That could keep us afloat until we figure things out. You want me to sign away my right to tell the truth? To let them control the narrative? I want you to survive. At what cost? Jonah leaned back in his chair. I'm just saying, pride's expensive, man. Sometimes you gotta swallow it to live another day. This isn't about pride. It's about principle. Principles don't pay rent. The words stung because they were true. I looked down at the spreadsheets again. All those red numbers. Years of work circling the drain because I'd fallen in love with the wrong woman. Let me think about it, I said finally. Jonah nodded. That's all I'm asking. That afternoon, I got a call from someone I hadn't expected. Mr. Hale? A woman's voice, professional but warm. My name is Diana Cross. I'm a parts distributor out of Newark. I heard you might be having some supply issues. I sat up straighter. Where'd you hear that? Word travels in this industry. I also heard you do good work, honest work. Depends who you ask. She laughed. Well, I'm asking, and I've got parts, competitive prices, fast shipping, if you're interested. It felt too good to be true. Why would you want to work with me? If you know about my situation, you know it's complicated. Complicated doesn't scare me, and I don't do business with the Whitmores anyway. Never liked their attitude. I felt a flicker of hope. What kind of inventory are we talking about? Send me your list. Let's see what I can do. We talked for another 20 minutes. By the end of the call, I had a quote that was actually reasonable and a delivery date that might save the Jenkins contract. When I hung up, Jonah was watching me with raised eyebrows. New supplier, I said, out of Newark, says she can get us what we need. Just like that? Just like that. Sounds suspicious. Sounds like a miracle. Those don't exist in our line of work. Maybe not, but I was too desperate to care. Diana Cross delivered exactly what she promised. Parts arrived Monday morning, 2 days ahead of schedule. Quality was good, prices were fair. The Jenkins Mustang got finished on time. Then, something else happened. A customer I'd never met walked in Tuesday afternoon asking for a full restoration on a '67 Chevy Impala. Said he'd heard we were the best in the area. "Where'd you hear that?" I asked. "Around," he said vaguely. "You interested or not?" We were interested. Wednesday, 2 more new customers. Thursday, 3. By Friday, we had a waiting list. Jonah and I stood in the garage office at the end of the day, looking at the schedule board that was suddenly full. "What the hell is happening?" Jonah asked. "I don't know," I admitted, "but I'm not complaining." "You think this is connected to Eleanor somehow? Like maybe she backed off?" I doubted it. Eleanor didn't back off. She doubled down. But something had shifted. That evening, I stayed late at the garage doing paperwork. Around 8, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Hello? Marcus, it's Diana Cross, the supplier from Newark." "Hey, Diana. What's up?" "I wanted to check in, make sure everything arrived okay." "It did. Thank you. You saved us." "Good. That's what I like to hear." She paused. "Listen, I'm going to be straight with you about something." My stomach tightened. Here it comes. The catch. "Those new customers you've been getting," Diana continued, "that's not random. I put out some feelers, made some calls. Word of mouth in this business is everything, and you needed people to know you were still operating despite the pressure." I sat down slowly. "You did that? Why?" "Because I've seen what the Whitmores do to people. I've watched them crush good businesses just because they could, and I decided a long time ago I wouldn't be part of that system." "I don't know what to say." "Don't say anything. Just keep doing good work. And when you're in a position to help someone else someday, do it." She hung up before I could respond. I sat there in the quiet garage, phone still in my hand, feeling something I hadn't felt in weeks: hope. Saturday morning, Eleanor showed up again. I was opening the garage when her car pulled up. Same luxury sedan, same expensive sunglasses, but something about her was different, smaller somehow. She got out and walked toward me slowly. "I know you don't want to see me," she said, "but I needed to talk to you." I crossed my arms. "What is it?" "My company's in trouble." "I heard." Word had gotten around that Whitmore Industries was facing supplier withdrawals, board members asking questions, investors getting nervous. "It's worse than people know," Eleanor continued. "We're hemorrhaging contracts, key partnerships falling apart. The board wants me to step down." I didn't say anything. "My father says it's because of you," she said. "He thinks you're sabotaging us somehow, turning people against the company." I almost laughed. "Eleanor, I've been working 16-hour days trying to keep my own business alive. I don't have time or energy to sabotage anyone." "I know." She looked down. "I told him that. He doesn't believe me." "That's not my problem." "No, it's not." She met my eyes. "But I wanted you to know." I'm sorry. For everything. I was wrong. The words should have meant something. A few weeks ago, they would have meant everything. Now, they just felt empty. Okay, I said. Okay? She looked confused. That's all? What do you want me to say, Eleanor? That I forgive you? That we can try again? I don't know. Maybe. I shook my head. I can't do that. Why not? You said you loved me. I did love you. Past tense. She flinched. You can't just stop loving someone. You're right. I didn't just stop. It took time. It took seeing you choose your family's approval over me. It took watching you try to make me small so you could stay comfortable. It took realizing that love isn't enough when there's no respect. Tears streamed down her face now. I do respect you. No, you don't. If you did, you never would have asked me to hide who I am. You never would have let your father talk to me the way he did. You never would have tried to pay me off to stay quiet. That wasn't me. Doesn't matter, you let it happen. That's the same thing. She wrapped her arms around herself. So what now? We just never speak again? I think that's best. Marcus, please. Eleanor. I said her name firmly. I forgave you already. Not because you asked, but because I needed to. Move on. I forgave you so I could be free. But forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. It doesn't mean I owe you another chance. She stood there crying, and I felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not vindication, just peace. Goodbye, Eleanor, I said. This time, I was the one who walked away. Weeks passed. The garage kept getting busier. We hired an apprentice, a kid named Deshaun who reminded me of myself at 19. Hungry, talented, just needed someone to give him a shot. I started sleeping better, eating regular meals, working out again. Life found a rhythm. One Tuesday afternoon, Jonah and I were closing up when a Lamborghini pulled up outside. We both stopped and stared. You expecting someone? Jonah asked. No. The driver's door opened and an older black man stepped out, well-dressed, confident. He walked toward us with a smile. Marcus Hale? He called out. That's me. I'm Robert Chambers. Mind if I take a look around? I glanced at Jonah, who shrugged. Sure, I said. Come on in. Robert walked through the garage slowly, examining everything. Our equipment, our workspace, the half-finished projects. Finally, he nodded. Nice operation. Clean. Professional. Thanks. Can I ask what this is about? I'm looking to invest in local businesses. Good businesses run by good people. Word is, you fit that description. My guard went up immediately. Who told you about me? Diana Cross mentioned you. Said you were someone worth knowing. Diana? Of course. Look, I said carefully. I appreciate the interest, but we're not looking for investors right now. Fair enough, but hear me out. Robert pulled out a business card. I own a chain of auto shops across 3 states. Been doing this for 30 years. I'm not looking to take over. Just looking to help good people grow. If you're ever interested, call me. He handed me the card and headed back to his Lamborghini. Before he got in, he turned back. One more thing, Marcus. That situation with the Whitmores? That took guts. Don't let anyone tell you different. He drove away before I could respond. Jonah looked at the card in my hand. You gonna call him? I don't know. Might be worth exploring. Might be. But in that moment, I wasn't thinking about business expansion or investment opportunities. I was thinking about how far I'd come. From a guy who'd almost married into a family that didn't want him to, a guy people sought out because they respected what he'd built. From someone trying to prove his worth to someone who knew his worth without needing anyone's validation. A month later, I was at home on a Saturday morning when my phone rang. Tasha, my cousin. Marcus, turn on Channel 7. Now. What? Why, just do it. I grabbed the remote and flipped to the local news. Eleanor's face filled the screen. She was standing outside Whitmore Industries headquarters, microphones thrust in her face. No longer be serving. As CEO, she was saying, the board and I have mutually agreed that it's time for new leadership. My stomach dropped. This decision has nothing to do with recent personal circumstances, Eleanor continued, her voice shaking slightly. This is about what's best for the company moving forward. But everyone watching knew the truth. The reporter asked a follow-up question, but I couldn't hear it over the blood rushing in my ears. Eleanor was stepping down. Because of me? Because of what happened at the wedding? Or because of something else? I turned off the TV. Part of me felt guilty, like maybe I'd caused this somehow. But a bigger part of me remembered that cold conversation with her father. The way Eleanor admitted she was too afraid to marry me. The way her family tried to crush my business. No, this wasn't my fault. These were the consequences of her choices, of her family's choices. I'd simply chosen myself for once. That evening, I drove to the garage even though it was closed. I just needed to be there, needed to remember what was real. I unlocked the door and walked inside. The smell of oil and metal, the familiar weight of tools, the proof that I'd built something with my own hands. This was mine, not because someone gave it to me, not because I tried to fit into a world that didn't want me, but because I worked for it, because I refused to disappear. I heard a car pull up outside. Through the window, I saw Eleanor's sedan. My first instinct was to lock the door, to pretend I wasn't there. But I didn't. I walked outside. Eleanor got out slowly. She wasn't wearing sunglasses this time. Her eyes were red and swollen. I know you saw the news, she said. I did. I wanted you to hear the truth from me, not from some press release. Okay, she took a breath. I stepped down because I couldn't keep pretending. Because every day I walked into that building, I thought about what I lost, what I threw away, and I realized I didn't want to be CEO if it meant being the kind of person who, her voice broke, who could do what I did to you. I didn't say anything. I don't expect you to forgive me, Eleanor continued. I don't expect anything from you. I just wanted you to know that you were right about everything. And I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. She turned to leave. Eleanor. She stopped. I hope you find whatever you're looking for, I said. I really do. She looked back at me with such raw pain that for a moment I almost reached for her. Almost, but I didn't, because some doors, once closed, needed to stay closed. Thank you, she whispered. Then she got in her car and drove away. I stood in the parking lot as the taillights disappeared around the corner. The night air was cool, quiet, and for the first time since this all began, I felt truly free. Days turned into weeks. The garage thrived. We took Robert Chambers up on his investment offer, not to buy us out, but to help us expand. We opened a second location across town, hired more staff. Deshaun became a full-time mechanic. I started mentoring other young people in the community, kids who needed someone to believe in them the way Jonah had believed in me. Life moved forward. I didn't hear from Eleanor again, but sometimes, late at night, I wondered about her, wondered if she was okay, if she'd found peace. I hoped she had, not because I wanted her back, but because despite everything, I didn't wish her pain. I'd learned something important through all of this. You can love someone and still walk away. You can forgive someone and still protect yourself. You can choose dignity over love. And that doesn't make you cold, it makes you whole. 6 weeks after Eleanor stepped down, I was at the garage early one morning when I saw something that made me stop. A Lamborghini, parked across the street, Eleanor's Lamborghini. She wasn't in it. It was just there, watching. My stomach tightened. Was she stalking me now? But as I stared at the car, I realized something. She wasn't inside. She'd just driven past, seen the garage, and kept going. This happened a few more times over the following weeks, always early morning, always just the car driving slowly past, then disappearing. She never stopped, never got out, just watched from a distance. Jonah noticed too. "That's kind of sad," he said one morning. "Yeah," I agreed. "You gonna talk to her?" "No." "Why not?" "Because there's nothing left to say." And there wasn't. We'd both made our choices. We'd both paid the price. Now we were living with the consequences. Some mornings, I saw her car. Some mornings, I didn't. Either way, I unlocked the garage door, turned on the lights, and got to work. Because that's what you do. You keep moving forward. You build a life worth living. And you don't look back. Spring turned into summer. The garage became something more than just a business. It became a community hub. Young mechanics stopped by to learn. Neighbors brought their cars. We sponsored a local little league team and put up a scholarship fund for kids interested in trade schools. Life felt good, full, real. I was under a Honda Accord one Thursday afternoon, wrestling with a stubborn oil filter when Deshaun called out from the office. "Marcus, you got a visitor." I rolled out from under the car, wiping my hands. "Who is it?" "Says her name is Vivian Whitmore." My heart stopped. Eleanor's mother. I stood up slowly. Through the office window, I could see her. She looked smaller than I remembered, older. She was wearing a simple dress, not the designer clothes I'd seen her in before. "You want me to tell her you're busy?" Deshaun asked quietly. I thought about it. It would be easy to send her away, to avoid whatever conversation she'd come here to have. But I was tired of running from things. "No," I said. "It's okay." I walked into the office. Vivian stood near the desk, hands clasped in front of her. When she saw me, something in her face crumbled. "Marcus," she said softly. "Mrs. Whitmore, please, call me Vivian." She looked around the office. "I hope I'm not interrupting." "I've got a few minutes." She nodded, then seemed to gather herself. "I came to apologize." I crossed my arms. "For what specifically?" "For everything. For how Richard treated you. For how I stood by and let it happen. For failing my daughter by teaching her that love should come with conditions." Her voice wavered. "For failing you by not standing up when I should have." I didn't say anything. I told myself I was protecting Eleanor, Vivian continued, that I was helping her maintain her position, her future. But the truth is, I was just protecting myself, protecting my comfort, my place in a family that values image over integrity. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because Eleanor is broken, Marcus. Completely broken. She stepped down from the company 2 months ago, and since then she's barely left the house. She doesn't eat, doesn't sleep, just sits in her room staring at old photos of the two of you." Something twisted in my chest, but I pushed it down. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said carefully, "but I don't know what you want me to do about it." "I'm not asking you to do anything. I'm asking you to let me say what I should have said months ago." Vivian's eyes filled with tears. "You were good for my daughter. You made her laugh. You challenged her to be better. You loved her honestly without ulterior motives. And we destroyed that because we cared more about what our friends would think than about her happiness." "Mrs. Whitmore, Vivian, I appreciate you coming here. I do. But Eleanor made her choice, and I made mine." "I know." She wiped her eyes. "I'm not here to ask you to take her back. I'm here to tell you that you were right. About all of it. And to say I'm sorry we made you feel like you weren't enough. Because you were always more than enough. We just couldn't see it." The sincerity in her voice caught me off guard. For 2 years, I'd watched this woman smile politely while treating me like an outsider. I'd heard her careful comments about appropriate matches and family expectations. I'd felt her judgment in every interaction, but now, standing in my garage in a simple dress, she looked like just a woman, a mother who'd failed her daughter and knew it. "Thank you," I said finally. "That means something." "Does it?" She looked at me hopefully. "It doesn't change anything, but yeah, it means something." Vivian nodded slowly. "That's more than I deserve." She turned to leave, then stopped. "One more thing. Richard and I are separating. I'm moving out next month." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. Some marriages are held together by money and status, not love. It took losing Eleanor's respect for me to see that." She smiled sadly. "You taught her to value herself. I wish I'd learned that lesson sooner." She left without waiting for a response. I stood in the office for a long time after she was gone, processing what had just happened. Jonah appeared in the doorway. "You okay?" "Yeah," I said. "I think I am." "That was heavy." "Yeah." "You feel bad? About Eleanor?" I thought about the question honestly. "I feel sad, but not guilty. There's a difference." Jonah nodded. "Good. Don't let them pull you back in." "I won't." And I meant it. 2 weeks later, I was locking up the garage at sunset when a text came through from an unknown number. "This is Eleanor. I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know I'm leaving town, starting over somewhere new. I hope you're happy, Marcus. You deserve it. And I'm sorry I couldn't be the person you needed me to be." I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to respond, to wish her well, to say something. But what was left to say? I'd already said goodbye, multiple times. This was just another ending to the same story. I deleted the message and put my phone away. Fall arrived with cool winds and changing leaves. The garage expanded again. We brought on 2 more mechanics and started offering classes for people who wanted to learn basic car maintenance. Every Saturday morning, the garage filled with neighbors learning how to change oil, replace brake pads, check tire pressure. It became about more than just fixing cars. It became about teaching people they could fix things themselves, that they didn't need to feel powerless. Deshaun thrived. He had a natural gift for teaching, explaining complex mechanical concepts in ways anyone could understand. Watching him work with the Saturday morning students reminded me why I'd started this business in the first place. Not for money, not for status, to build something real, something that helped people. One Saturday in October, an older woman named Mrs. Patterson came to the class with her teenage grandson, James. She was teaching him about car maintenance because his father wasn't around. After class, she pulled me aside. "Thank you," she said, "for creating this space. My grandson needs good men in his life, needs to see what it looks like to work hard and build something honest." "He's lucky to have you," I said. "Maybe, but he needs more than just me." She patted my arm. "You're doing important work here, Marcus. Don't ever forget that." Her words stayed with me long after she left. November brought the first real cold. I was working late one Tuesday evening, finishing up paperwork, when Jonah came into the office with 2 beers. "5-year anniversary," he said, handing me one. I looked up, confused. "Of what?" "Of us opening this place." He gestured around the garage. "5 years ago today, we signed the lease on this building, remember?" I did remember. We'd been so nervous, so excited. The building had been a disaster, leaking roof, cracked foundation, barely functioning electrical. But it was ours. "Can't believe it's been 5 years," I said. "Look at us now." Jonah raised his beer. 2 locations, 8 employees, community programs. We're not just surviving, man. We're thriving. We clinked bottles. "Thank you," I said, "for having my back through everything." "That's what brothers do." We drank in comfortable silence for a while. "You ever think about her?" Jonah asked eventually. He didn't have to specify who. "Sometimes," I admitted. Less than I used to. You miss her? I miss who I thought she was. But that person didn't really exist. I was in love with potential, with what we could have been if she'd chosen differently. That's mature as hell, I laughed. Therapy helped. You're going to therapy? Started a few months ago. Figured I should talk to someone about everything that happened. Make sure I wasn't carrying it around in ways I didn't notice. Jonah looked impressed. That's good, man. Really good. Yeah, it is. We finished our beers as the sun set outside, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. You ever think about dating again? Jonah asked. Maybe eventually, but I'm not rushing it. I'm good where I am right now. And I was. For the first time in years, I felt complete on my own, not waiting for someone else to make me whole, not trying to prove my worth to anyone, just existing, working, building, living. It was enough. December came with early snow. Christmas decorations went up around the neighborhood. The garage stayed busy with people needing winter maintenance, tire changes, battery checks, heating repairs. On Christmas Eve, we closed early. I was walking to my car when I noticed something. Across the street, parked in the shadows, was a familiar Lamborghini. My breath caught. I hadn't seen it in months. I'd assumed Eleanor had left town like her text said, started over somewhere else. But here was her car. I stood there in the falling snow, staring at it. The driver's side door opened. Eleanor stepped out slowly. She looked different, thinner. Her hair was shorter. She was wearing jeans and a simple coat, nothing like the designer clothes she used to wear. We looked at each other across the snowy street. Neither of us moved. Finally, she walked toward me, slowly, like she was approaching a wild animal that might bolt. Hi, she said softly when she got close. Hi. I know I said I was leaving. I did leave. I went to Seattle, but I couldn't stay away. This is still home. Even if, she trailed off, even if I'm here, I finished. Yeah. The snow fell between us, soft and silent. How have you been? She asked. Good. Really good. I heard about the expansion, the community programs. That's amazing, Marcus. Thank you. I'm not here to cause problems, she said quickly. I drive by sometimes. I can't help it. I see your Lambo, parked outside, and I'm happy you're doing well, that you built something beautiful. Wait. My Lambo? I said. She looked confused. The black Lamborghini. I assumed. I almost laughed. Eleanor, that's not mine. That belongs to Robert Chambers, our investor. He stops by sometimes to check on things. Her face went pale. Oh, I thought, all this time I thought you'd. She closed her eyes. God, I'm such an idiot. Why would you think I'd have a Lamborghini? Because you deserve one. Because you deserved everything I couldn't give you. Her voice broke. I just wanted to see proof that you were okay, that walking away from me didn't ruin you. Something in my chest ached. I'm more than okay, I said gently, but not because of money or cars or any of that. I'm okay because I chose myself, because I stopped trying to be small to make other people comfortable. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. I'm glad. I'm so glad. What about you? I asked. Are you okay? I'm getting there. Therapy, lots of therapy, working on myself, learning to be someone I can respect. She wiped her eyes. I got a job at a nonprofit. Nothing glamorous, but it feels real. It feels like mine. That's good. We stood there in the snow, two people who used to love each other, now just existing in the same space. I should go, Eleanor said finally. Okay. She started to walk away, then turned back. Marcus? Yeah? Thank you for walking away. I hated you for it at first, but it was the kindest thing you could have done. It forced me to face who I'd become, to change. I didn't know what to say to that. Merry Christmas, she whispered. Merry Christmas, Eleanor. She got back in her car and drove away. I stood in the falling snow, watching her taillights disappear, and I felt peace. Not closure, exactly. Not some Hollywood ending where everything tied up neat and pretty. Just peace. The knowledge that I'd done the right thing, even when it hurt, that I'd chosen dignity over desperation, that I'd built a life worth living on my own terms. New Year's Eve found me at Jonah's house with a group of friends. Nothing fancy, just people I cared about, eating good food and laughing too loud. At midnight, we went outside to watch fireworks. As colors exploded across the sky, Jonah raised his beer. To new beginnings! Everyone cheered and drank. I looked around at these people, my real family, the ones who'd stood by me, who'd celebrated my wins and caught me when I fell. This was what mattered. Not wealth or status or fitting into worlds that didn't want me. This, community, integrity, work that meant something. You good? Jonah asked, noticing my expression. Yeah, I said, smiling. I'm really good. January brought new projects and new students to the Saturday classes. The garage hummed with activity. We were booked solid for 3 months, had a waiting list. People drove from surrounding towns to have us work on their cars. One Wednesday morning, I was in the office reviewing applications for a new apprenticeship program when Deshaun knocked on the door. Marcus? Someone here to see you. Who? Said his name is Richard Whitmore. My blood ran cold. I walked out to the garage slowly. Richard stood near the entrance, looking out of place in his expensive suit. He looked older than I remembered. Tired. Mr. Whitmore, I said evenly. Marcus. He turned to face me. Thank you for seeing me. I haven't decided if I'm seeing you yet. What do you want? He smiled slightly, like he appreciated my directness. I came to apologize. For what specifically? For how I treated you, for trying to destroy your business out of spite, for being a small, fearful man who couldn't see past the color of your skin to the content of your character. The words sounded rehearsed, but there was something genuine beneath them. Why now? I asked. Because my daughter won't speak to me. Because my wife left me. Because I'm watching my company struggle under new leadership and realizing that I built an empire on sand. He paused. And because I've been going to therapy, and my therapist suggested I make amends to people I've harmed. So, this is for you, not for me. Yes, he said honestly, but that doesn't make the apology less sincere. I studied him for a long moment. Apology noted, I said finally, but not accepted. Not yet. Fair enough. You tried to ruin me, I continued, because I had the audacity to love your daughter. You looked at me and saw only what I wasn't instead of what I was. You used your power to punish me for existing in a space you thought belonged only to people like you. Richard's jaw tightened, but he nodded. You're right. I don't know if you can fix that. I don't know if I can forgive that. I understand. But I hope you become someone worth forgiving. For your sake, and for Eleanor's. Something in his face cracked. She won't see me. Can you blame her? No. We stood in uncomfortable silence. I should go, Richard said finally. Thank you for listening. He walked to his car, a more modest sedan now, I noticed, not the luxury vehicle he used to drive. Before he got in, he turned back. You were right that day. At the wedding, walking away took more courage than staying. I hope Eleanor realizes that someday. He drove off. I stood there, processing what had just happened. Jonah appeared beside me. That had to feel good, having him apologize. It didn't feel like anything, I said honestly. He's just a man now, not the villain I'd built up in my head. Just a sad, lonely man who destroyed his family because he couldn't let go of his prejudice. That's even sadder. Yeah, it is. Spring returned. 6 months since Eleanor drove away on Christmas Eve. 8 months since I walked away from the altar. Life had found its rhythm. The garage was thriving. I was mentoring 5 apprentices now. The Saturday classes had to move to a bigger space to accommodate everyone. I started dating casually, nothing serious, just reminding myself what it felt like to connect with someone without the weight of trying to prove my worth. One Saturday in March, I was teaching a brake replacement class when I looked up and saw someone standing in the back. Eleanor. She was wearing jeans and a t-shirt from the nonprofit where she worked. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, no makeup, no pretense. She just watched quietly as I finished the lesson. When class ended and everyone filed out, she approached slowly. "Hi," she said. "Hi. I hope this is okay. I saw the class announcement on your website. I wanted to learn. For real this time. Not as Eleanor Whitmore, CEO, just as me. Someone who wants to know how to take care of her own car." I looked at her carefully, searching for hidden motives. I didn't find any. "Next class is in 2 weeks," I said. "Saturdays at 9. I'll be here." "Eleanor." "I know," she interrupted. "I know we can't go back. I know I can't fix what I broke. I'm not here for that. I'm here because I need to learn how to do things for myself, how to not rely on money or status or other people to solve my problems." "Okay, okay. Yeah, you can come to the class. Just as a student, nothing more." She smiled, and it was genuine. "That's all I'm asking." She came to every class after that, sat in the back, took notes, asked questions, got grease under her fingernails, struggled with stubborn bolts, and learned how to use a jack properly. I treated her like every other student, not cold, not special, just equal. Slowly, over weeks and then months, something shifted. We weren't Marcus and Eleanor anymore, not the way we used to be. We were just two people who'd hurt each other, learning how to exist in the same space without bleeding all over it. Sometimes after class, we'd talk, brief conversations, nothing heavy. She told me about her work at the nonprofit, about the therapy she was doing, about learning to rebuild her relationship with her mother. I told her about the garage expansion, about Deshaun's progress, about the scholarship fund we'd started. It wasn't friendship, not yet, but it wasn't pain anymore either. It was just neutral, peaceful. One Saturday in early summer, after class, Eleanor lingered while I cleaned up. "Can I tell you something?" she asked. "Sure." "I used to drive by here every morning, watch you open the garage. I told myself I was checking on you, making sure you were okay. But really, I was punishing myself, reminding myself of what I lost." "That's not healthy," I said. "I know. My therapist helped me see that, helped me understand that I was holding on to pain because I thought I deserved it." She paused. "I stopped driving by a few months ago. This is the first time I've been here since Christmas." "Good. I'm letting go, Marcus, of the guilt, of the shame, of the fantasy that somehow we could fix things." She looked at me. "I'm accepting that what we had is gone, and that's okay." "Yeah," I said quietly. "It is. I hope someday we can be friends, real friends, but if not, that's okay too." "Maybe someday," I said honestly, "but not yet." She nodded. "Fair enough." She gathered her things and headed for the door. "Eleanor?" She turned. "I'm proud of you," I said, "for doing the work, for choosing yourself. That takes courage." Her eyes filled with tears, but she smiled. "Thank you. That means more than you know." She left, and I meant what I'd said. I was proud of her. Not because I wanted her back, not because I thought we'd end up together, but because she was finally becoming someone she could respect, and that was worth celebrating. Late summer, almost a year after the wedding that never was, I was closing the garage at dusk when I noticed something. The Lamborghini was parked across the street, but this time I knew it was Robert's car. I walked over. He was sitting inside, windows down, listening to jazz. "You waiting for someone?" I asked. He smiled. "Just enjoying the evening. You got a minute?" "Sure. Get in." I walked around and slid into the passenger seat. "I've been watching you," Robert said. "This past year, the way you've grown, the way you've handled everything with grace. Thank you. I want to offer you something. A partnership, full partnership. Expand Hale and Ross into a regional chain. I provide capital and connections. You and Jonah provide the vision and heart." My breath caught. That's that's huge. It is. Think about it. Talk to Jonah. But Marcus, you've earned this, not because someone gave it to you, because you built it. He handed me a folder full of proposals and projections. "Take your time," he said, "but I think you're ready." That night, I sat in my apartment reviewing the proposal. It was everything I'd ever dreamed of. Real growth, real impact, the chance to help even more people. But it was also overwhelming. My phone buzzed. A text from Jonah. "Robert called me. Are we really doing this?" I smiled and typed back, "Let's talk tomorrow. But yeah, I think we are." I set the phone down and walked to my window. The city stretched out below me, lights twinkling in the darkness. A year ago, I'd stood at an altar in a tuxedo, ready to marry a woman who was ashamed of me. Now, I stood here, in jeans and a t-shirt in my own apartment with grease still under my fingernails, ready to build something bigger than I'd ever imagined. And I'd done it without compromising who I was, without disappearing to make someone else comfortable, without trading my dignity for acceptance. I'd chosen myself. And that choice had changed everything. Some mornings, I still see Eleanor's car drive past the garage. Not as often anymore, but sometimes she doesn't stop, doesn't wave, just drives by slowly, then keeps going. And that's okay. We both needed to let go, to move forward, to build new lives from the ashes of what we'd destroyed. I don't hate her. I don't love her either. I just wish her well from a distance, because some people teach you who you are by showing you who they're not. Some people love you just enough to hurt you, but not enough to change. And some chapters end not with resolution, but with acceptance. This is mine. I am Marcus Hale. I'm 33 years old, black, a mechanic, a business owner, a mentor, a man who walked away from everything he thought he wanted and discovered he already had everything he needed. I built this life with my own hands, and nobody can take that away from me. The garage door opens at 7 every morning. I'm always there to unlock it, and every single day, I choose myself first. That's not selfish. That's survival. That's victory. That's freedom. The end.